Hi everyone, hope you're all keeping well, and thanks for joining us for another of FlowForma's exclusive virtual workshops today, where you'll see another significant business process digitized in under 1 hour. My name is Conor McGrath. I'm Digital Marketing Executive here at FlowForma, and I'll be your host for today's workshop session. And we're really excited about this webinar today. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll try and make it as interactive as possible. So really looking forward to this one. Okay, so I'm delighted to be joined once again today by my colleagues, David Shanley, who's Product Specialist, and Stewart Miller, who's Territory Manager here at FlowForma. So once again, we wanted to give our audience today an insight into how easy it is to use the FlowForma Process Automation tool and how it allows you to digitize your processes quickly, gain rapid adoption, and get an early return on your investment on that as well. And during this workshop, we will ask you to participate as much as possible and be as interactive. We'll make it as interactive as possible. So we've got some polls as well, and we'll try and get to any questions you may have as well while David and Stewart are building out the process. So I suppose with that in mind, now that we're all acquainted, let's see where everyone at home and elsewhere is logging in from today. So I'm just going to launch a quick poll to get an idea as to where everyone is logging in from today. So it's really interesting to see the variation, I suppose, in where people are logging in from. So I know there's plenty of people on already and they're casting their votes here already. It seems to be quite diverse already, so it's really great to have you all here today. I might just share that up for everyone as well, just to see. So it looks like it's pretty varied. So across North the US and Europe, and some African people online as well. So once again, warm welcome to you all, and it's great to see such a diverse mix. So thank you all for taking the time to join us today. Okay, so the results are in, and as you know, before today, we once again asked you all to put in your votes as to what process you would like to see digitized today. And as you can see, we had a clear winner with 36% of registrations today. Want to see a purchase order request automated during today's workshop session. And so I suppose let's get another poll up and find out what your process challenges are and what you're currently facing. So I might ask you to submit your answers on screen now. Once again, some varied answers coming in here. Seems to be quite a diverse mix once again of different challenges that you're facing. 43% of you are saying that your processes are currently paper-based. 14% are saying there's a lack of mobile accessibility, and 29% saying there's poor communications with suppliers and third parties, and 14% there as well saying that information can be submitted incorrect or even lost. So these are all common challenges that we see prospects coming to us with. I suppose Dave and Stewart, you've seen those.
Absolutely. Are you surprised, Stewart, that the purchase order request came in top?
To be honest, Dave, no, I'm not. Thank you, Connor. Well, welcome to everybody, and thanks for everybody attending today. I hope you're all very well. Dave, we've got attendees from North America, Europe, and Africa. So we have a truly global audience today. But how do you feel about digitizing the purchase order request? Is it a challenge to you to get this done?
It'll be tight, but we'll get there.
I didn't think it would pose a problem to you. For those people who haven't seen FlowForma and are looking at FlowForma for the first time today, I'm really excited to hear what you think of it and get some feedback from you during and towards the end of the session. So, but some of you, conscious that some of you may be disappointed that your process wasn't chosen. However, you'll still learn a huge amount about the flexibility and agility of the solution. I think the second process there was an approval process. Part of doing the purchase order requisition, there are approvals within that. So it's going to cover the majority requests coming from you today. Also, bear in mind, please, that there's an open invitation to engage directly with us, where we can discuss your own process challenges and show you how easy it is to digitize your own specific flows. But Dave, to answer your question, no, I'm not surprised. The purchase order requisition is conducted by every single organization, right? It's not industry specific, and it applies to all organizations. And the attendees reflect that today because there's quite a wide cross section of industries. And secondly, it's quite a it's quite a painful process. Everyone's having to, if you're having to do it manually with emails going back and forth, documents passing between parties, approvals, and in some cases multiple approvals, especially if you've got different approval levels, and the signing of documents, data collection, and so on. So if organizations can digitize it, it's a big win. And this is shown within our customer base as well, because it's one of the most common processes that our customers target to digitize, because it does tend to be cross-functional.
Very good. Do you have any examples, Stuart, as to how scalable FlowForma is within organizations?
Yeah, I mean, the answer to it is highly scalable. I mean, our customers start with one initial process, and in some instances they go on to digitize hundreds. But all the processes everybody voted for, they can actually be digitized quite easily. And as I say, there's an open invitation on a one-to-one basis for us to show you that. But yeah, I totally agree with you, Dave. It's not just about this one purchase order requisition process. This is about the flexibility and the scalability about digitizing as many processes that you want with absolute rapid agility. A couple of examples come to mind. The Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine, they've digitized well in excess of over 200 processes and boast that they have a paperless finance department. Another one springs to mind, a leading well-known UK construction company, which will have to be unnamed because they believe FlowForma gives them competitive advantage, has digitized in excess of 400 flows and is supported by less than one member of their IT team. They've got a team of business users using the no-code tool. But every one of our customers has different objectives. They want to achieve different things. They want different objectives to their business. But the common feedback we receive very regularly is how quick and easy it is to digitize those manual processes. This is coming from our customers. And here's some examples of how quickly our customers are not only digitizing their processes, but actually getting into production and live. So if you can imagine, if you've tried to digitize processes, how long it's taken, then this is an example of how quickly our customers are doing it self-sufficiently. And they're delivering value to their businesses and accelerating their digitization journeys with the rapid use, the agile use, the flexible and sustainable use of FlowForma. So our customers are telling us that it's as quick as being up to 8 times quicker than using the big brand names such as Microsoft Power Automate. And that's why our customers really love using the tool, because it delivers results very, very quickly. So once they've delivered one digitized process, they very quickly move on to digitize any more. So you can see from this list, and a lot of these will resonate with you all, there are departmental processes in there, there's cross-functional ones, and there's also the inclusion of external organizations that can all be included. And our customers are finding they have the flexibility to digitize more or less any process they want with rapid agility. So I'm conscious I'm doing most of the talking here, so enough chat. Shall we get on with this, Dave? You know, the hour's ticking by, and I have no doubt that you will digitize the purchase order requisition well within the hour.
Okay, so Connor, if you can hand me over. Okay, Stuart, you can see my screen, yeah?
Yes, I can, Dave, yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so the process we're going to build out here is the winning process in our survey, the purchase order request. And what you're looking at here is a FlowForma trial environment here. And this is the landing page for the FlowForma desktop app. Now, in reality, end users aren't going to be going in here. The links to these forms sitting underneath these tiles can be surfaced up above the app. For example, in your intranet, you could create a SharePoint Teams site and surface up your links here like that. And you can also embed into your team site here. For example, you can embed in your list views so people can go in and look and see what processes require their attention. And that could be across multiple different sites within the site collection as well, should you wish. And then you can have your reporting as well. So you can pull all this information through and give the user a nice holistic overview of all the various different touch points that are relevant to them. So the process we're going to build out again is our purchase order request. And what I'm going to do is, to start with, is I'm going to actually create a form as an end user and go through the various different steps in the form, and then we'll build it out again from scratch. So I'm going to initiate the process by clicking on the tile here, and it's going to open up in the first step in the form. Just to talk a little bit about the form layout, the header portion is customizable here. So I've got the name of the process in here, obviously. I can pull through logos in here. I can also take data captured in the form and pull that up into the header area here as well. Sitting underneath that, we have a step bar within which you have all the steps that need to be engaged with. In this case, it moves sequentially from step to step. So from PO request through to the level 1 approval and so on. Now that's sequential, but you can also have scenarios whereby steps need to be run concurrently or in parallel, and that you can do as well. The currently engaged in step is always in white. So you'll see here I've selected the initial step here, and you can see all the various different fields that the user needs to engage with. So for example, I'm going to put in my project code. I've got a list lookup here to select my supplier. I've got my PO type. Now what we have sitting here as well are business rules. So in this case here, if I select PO type equals other, I have a question change rule firing that's going to ask me what other is. So that's called a question change rule. And question change rules fire on the trigger question where the question control here is updated by the user. That might be the user making a selection from a dropdown. They could be keying in a value into a single line of text box. That's called a question change rule. Sitting underneath this, we have our table structure here. And in our table structure here, I'm using SharePoint lists. The two lists I'm using here is a category list, very simple to manage and maintain, similar to Excel, and I'm using a category item list. So what I want to be able to do is, once the user selects a category in the initial column, I want to be able to see the associated items for that category and that category only. So if I go in here into the initial column and select category A, you'll see I'm only able to choose from items A1, items A2. If I put in a quantity here and a price, it's going to automatically calculate the total for me. And then it gives me an option here with a file upload question to pull through a quote should I wish. And that's going to get attached to the step here. So I'll just add one more row here very quickly. Category B, item B1, and one more upload here. Now, there's other business rules sitting here under the hood too. There's a data validation rule here. So if the total is less than 500, which it is here, it's not going to allow me to proceed. So when I click submit, I'm going to get my warning here. So you can govern how the user is engaging with this. If they're putting in a request that's below a certain amount, you can manage that using business rules. So the first thing I need to do here is up the price here and bring it up over 500. But what also is in place here is purchase requisition total greater than 2,500 requires level 2 approval. Now at the moment I have level 1 approval. But if I wanted to bring that up to level 2 approval, I need to just up my amounts here a little bit. And you'll see now we have level 2 approval required here as well.
Okay.
And that's done using a business rule. Two business rules sitting here, a validation rule and a hide show step rule. And again, they're question change rules as well. So two rules here and one rule sitting here. And we're going to build those rules out now shortly. When I click submit, I can have step level rules firing. So I can have a step completed rule firing. I could be sending an email notification to the next approver. I could be assigning a step to a specific approver and so on. And I can also do the same when I click save. So you'd use the save rules if you've got a long running ongoing process that requires you to dip in and out of your step multiple times. So when I click submit, it moves through to the next step. And in this step here, it's level 1 approval. Again, currently engaged in step is in white. Now what I can do here is I can take all the data captured in the initial step here and push it through to this step, or I can give the approver review permissions to review the content on the initial step by simply clicking on the box. So the beauty of this is you have one clear overview, one clear form UI, so you can see contextually where you sit within the process at any moment in time, and you can dip in and out of other steps read only to see the content that's been input there. And again, I could take that content, push it onto this step should I wish. Now again, we've more question change rules sitting here. If I say approve is reject, I have a hide show step rule sitting here, and that's going to actually kill off the remaining steps. So when I click submit, the form will close. In this case here, I could put in a reason and then send an email when I click submit to the initiator, notifying them why their purchase order was rejected. If I select request amendment, a different path altogether. The purchase order is still in play, but now I've got some comments and I want to actually pass this back to the previous step. So I'm going to put in my comments. And when I click submit now, because approve equals request amendment, it's going to pass it back to the previous step when I click submit, and that's a step completed rule is going to fire here. And it's going to show these comments embedded on the previous step. So 3 rules firing there: a pass back, hide show question, and then I'm copying the value back. So I can go back in here and I can make the appropriate change to it, resubmit my step, goes back again to the approver. In this case, I'm happy to approve. Again, dynamically, hide show question rules are firing here, determining what gets shown, what doesn't. And when I click submit, it moves on again then to the next step. So it moves through the various different steps here. And if we're to take a happy path and take it through to PO raised, you'll see here all the values captured are copied across into this table here. And in this instance here, this table is not dynamic. There's a fixed number of rows and it's not editable, and that's by design. I've decided to design it that way. So if I put in my purchase order here and click submit, it moves on then to our final step here, which are goods received. And you'll notice here there's an additional column here to acknowledge when the goods have been received. So this is a very, very kind of stripped back kind of a purchase order request because they vary significantly in most companies. But the most important thing here is the ease in which you can actually create tables, which are key to purchase orders, and the ease in which you can move through an approval process, whether that's sequentially, happy path all the way through, or whether it has to go back and an initiator, for example, has to make changes. So I'm going to close this off here.
That covers the approval process, because there was about 28% of the attendees were looking for the approval process.
Absolutely, it does. So I'm going to go in here into my admin section here. I'm going to go into create new process flow. And I'm going to copy through. So I'm going to call this purchase order request. I'm just going to put today's date on so I can pick it up from my builds here. And then this is a prefix. What this does is it just gives you a prefix ahead of any form IDs that are created from this process build here. So it's POR. Now what this is going to do now is it's going to open up Flow Designer. So Flow Designer is a 3-in-1 toolkit. It combines your forms, your workflow, and your document generation capabilities in one single build interface. And when you're applying your rules, your business logic, your workflow rules, you can do that using 100% no code. And it's key that you can do this from a single build interface, because it's not just about the speed at which you can build. Maintenance is also very important. You could build a process out using some of the other tools that are out there. And because you've got so many disparate elements you have to knit together, it can be challenging even for the person that's built it to go back in 6 months, 9 months later and change it. This is a single interface, which makes it a lot easier, a lot more intuitive to make any changes. So I'm going to start now by adding my steps. So we're going to have our initial step here called PO request.
Let me know when you're ready to answer. If we've got our first question in, Dave.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's from Denise. Hi, Denise. Hope you're well. Denise is asking what mobile capability is there?
Yeah, so we have a mobile app for iOS and Android, and that also has offline capabilities, so you can engage with a process even if you are not online. So what happens there in that instance is that the data gets cached in the form onto your local device and gets uploaded back to SharePoint once you have connectivity. It's used a lot in construction in particular for a lot of their processes which are on site.
Gotcha.
So
yeah. Okay, thanks, Dave.
So,
Thanks
no
for
problem.
the question, Denise.
So that's our first step. Then we're going to have level 1 approval and level 2 approval. Now I'm assigning each step to myself here. You notice in the assign to, I'm just doing that just for the build here. I can assign that to a specific individual. I could also assign that to a SharePoint group as well, should I wish. But I can also use step assigned business rules to dynamically assign based on an engagement in the form. So there's loads of different ways you can do it. So we'll have our level 2 approval here. And again, I'm just assigning to myself for the time being. And then we're going to go to PO raised, which is coming up next. And I'm just pasting that in here. And lastly, we will have our goods received. So you can have a lot more in this process where you might have a subsequent step for invoice matching and so on as well. But this is more just to give a general idea as to how this process can be built and built very quickly. So once I have my steps in place, I want to add my questions to each step. So we're going to start off with our initial step here by simply selecting it here. And we're going to start adding our questions. So the first thing I want to capture is I want to actually impart to the user that their purchase order has to be in excess of 500 euro. So I'm going to add what's called a separator here. So you see all the question types here. There's a lot you can use here. The ones we're going to cover off are the most common ones: single line of text, person or group, multiple lines of text. But there's a lot here to choose from, such as looking up SharePoint lists, dynamic CRM integration, entity data management, SQL Server lookups, repeating tables, which we're going to use, person or group, which we're going to use as well, digital signatures, barcode scanners, wet signatures, which are used a lot for on-site inspections of mobile devices. Geolocation, again, used a lot on mobile devices for on-site. So what we're going to use here is a separator. Now, a separator is a graphical representation on the steps. So it imparts information, it can denote a section, etc. So this is what we're going to say here. Purchase order request must be for a minimum of 500 euro. And I'll just put in a little background here very quickly. And the text color, save. That's my initial question in place here. You can see here, once this opens up, you'll see all the various different questions in situ here. So I'm going to pull in requested by now. So we'll just start layering this up quickly. So I want to get to the business rules. So requested by, that's going to be a person or group. That's a SharePoint user. And we're going to set that to the current user. As with all questions, I can make them mandatory. I could put in a tooltip description as well. So that's set to the current user. We're going to have a project code. I'll leave that as single line of text. We're going to have a supplier. Now, in this case here, I actually have a SharePoint list called supplier. And in that list, I've just got 3 suppliers. But what you can do here with this is, it's a list lookup question here. I'm going to look up my list, which lives above the app here. So if I scroll down, this is where it lives. And there it is, suppliers. And I'm going to look up the supplier column here in that list. Next thing I want to capture is the PO type. So what type of purchase order is this? So all I'm doing here is layering this up very quickly. I'm going to make that a choice. And I'm going to have 3 choices here. My 3 choices are going to be, or rather 4, I should say, because we're going to add other as well. So now, should other be chosen, I want to capture what that is. We'll leave it represented as a drop down. So again, if other is chosen, I need to know what that is. So I'm going to add a question to capture that information too. We'll call that other PO type. And now we're through to the repeating table. So I'm going to add first just a separator to denote that section. And again, separators are very useful when it comes to imparting information to the user as well as just denoting sections within the form. So I'll get my separator here. We're going to call a purchase order. I'm going to give it a size, weight, leave it white. I'll just give it a background here. Next thing I want is my table. So our table is going to have let's call it PO. It's going to be a repeating table. Tables can be quite difficult to work with in a lot of systems. They're quite easy to use here. What you have here is you've got sub-questions. Each sub-question is its own unique column within the table, and you can apply business rules within that as well. So what I'm going to have here initially is my category and my category column. And that's going to be a lookup. The list I'm going to look up again is my category A list here, and then I'm going to go in and filter in my second column for associated items. So again, all it is a lookup. List I'm extracting my information from is my category list, which I'm going to dig out now.
Another question, Dave.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
Quite relevant. It's quite relevant to what you're doing, because you're doing this quickly, and obviously you're very used to doing it. Paula has asked a question on how quickly a user can be trained up on this. I think where that's coming from, I think is you're doing a lot of known stuff to yourself, but how long does it take somebody to learn how to use this?
Usually with the training we provide, which is 2 days in duration, it's going to get you up to speed. It's a very intuitive tool to use. You're going to really see the power of it once I start applying the business rules and the workflow rules. We also have as well SureStart, which is something you might mention later on, Stuart, which is a program that is a collaborative build of your first process with FlowForma, and make sure you get up and running very quickly. But it's a very intuitive tool to use. It's not a steep learning curve compared to a lot of the tools that are out there. And it's designed from the ground up for process owners to build with.
Yeah, sure. Paula, to answer your question, we handhold you to get you fully au fait with digitizing your own processes. So as Dave says, we'll use the SureStart program to collaborate with you to get the first process up and running, as well as a couple of days training, and from that you will be self-sufficient in digitizing your own processes. We're there to help, but our customers are more than happy with just a couple of days, and you're off up and running.
That's exactly it. So what I'm doing now is I am going to continue building my table here. So I'm just going to go back in and apply my filter to my item column. So my item is going to filter based on the chosen category. So if I edit it here, my second column in my repeating table, I go in and apply a filter. Filter is going to be where the item equals our category. Or rather, the category equals the category, I should say. When category equals category, we're going to have our filtered item here.
Okay.
What we also need to capture here is we need to capture quantity, price, and total. So I'm going to go add sub questions for those. So quantity, which is going to be a number. And we'll set it to a minimum of 1. We're going to have our price. Which is going to be a number as well.
Okay.
2 decimal places. We'll make this a currency. We'll make it euros. And then we're going to have our total. So our total is going to be calculated.
Yeah.
And that's going to be, again, it's going to be a currency. It's going to be 2 decimal places. And again, our currency is euro. And all I need to do here is just go in and it's quantity, literally multiplied by, using the asterisk, multiplied by price. That's our total.
Easy as that.
Easy as that. And what I can do then is, if I want to get a total of my totals, I can go in here and just add outside of the table an additional question here to capture that information. So I'm going to do that now very quickly.
You're just showing off now.
No, I don't think so. So total calculated. And we're going to have, again, a currency, 2 decimal places, and it's going to be our euros here again. And all I'm doing here is selecting this, our total column from my table, and that's it in place. Next thing I want to capture here is we want to impart to the user that level 2 approval is required if it's in excess of 2,500. So I'm just going to put in a quick separator for that.
Okay.
And lastly, should it pass back to this step from level 1, we want to be able to see what the level 1 approver's comments were. So I need to add these in here. So you're adding in all the questions you may or may not need.
Sure.
So it's going to be multiple lines of text. Save, save. And those are all my questions on my initial step in place. So I'm going to go to my level 1 approval here to add my questions here. And what I can do here as well is I can use a form preview. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow me to, if I go into level 1 approval and I start adding my questions here, I can go for my approved question, which I'm going to make a choice. And we're going to have 3 choices here. It's going to be approve, reject, and request amendment. We'll leave it as a drop down. Click save. You can see you can layer up your form and see it being built out here before your eyes as well. So that can be very useful, particularly when you're getting used to using the tool.
Customer feedback on that's brilliant.
It is. And what we're going to do now is we're going to add 2 other questions here. We're going to have our reason for rejection. Should it be rejected? Multiple lines of text. And we're going to have amendment comments. Should there a request amendment be chosen? In which case it's going to go back to the previous step. So all I'm doing again is just layering it up, adding my questions to each step. So on level 2 approval, I'm just going to add 1 question, approve.
Okay.
We're nearly there now, so we can get stuck into our rules, which is when the fun starts. So approve is going to be a choice. And we'll have our 3 choices here. And PO raise, I'm just going to add to this one now. I've already built out a table here, which is going to be fixed. It won't be dynamic, so you won't be able to add rows to it. And I'm just going to dig that out here. So I can reuse and repurpose questions. I can also reuse steps. I can also make copies of steps as well and change the copy. So let me just go in here. And this is our table here. Yep, okay. I'm going to add that in here quickly. And I'll do the same for goods inwards. I've got one here as well, already made. JYO. I happen to know the code here. That's it there, JYO. So I can quickly reuse and repurpose content here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start adding our rules.
Okay. You like this bit?
I do. So on our initial step here, the first thing I want to do is request it by. I want to make that read only. I'm selecting it here. That's going to disable the question control here. Project code is going to be fed in. Suppliers list lookup PO type. If other is chosen, that's when I want to see what other PO type is. So I'm going to select it here and hide it by default. That question will remain hidden in any form unless a business rule is put in place to make it visible. And our trigger point, again, for a question change rule is the trigger question where the question control gets updated. The question box gets updated by the user, whether that's selecting from a drop-down keying in a value. I'm on my trigger question here. If PO type equals other, show other PO type. So again, trigger point, add rules. You see all the rule categories available to you here. Workflow control rules are the ones you're going to use the most. We've all these data integration rules here as well.
Okay.
So there's a lot of depth here. But the reality is the rules you're going to use the most are these workflow control rules here. So I'm going to use a hide show question rule on my trigger question. I'm going to go in here and I do have a condition, and the condition is going to be, if I drill down here into my first step, if PO type equals other.
Yeah.
If that condition, I need to spell it right first. If that condition is fulfilled, I want to show, again, drilling down, other PO type. And I can have rule combinations, I can group conditions, I can have multiple actions and action combinations here as well. So what I can do here as well is if I want to see how my rules are performing, I can go in here at step level and run a test form here as well and I can take a look and see my rules in action. So I've just created a test form here. You'll see PO type if I choose other. Now it's asking me what it is. I can look at my category here. My list lookups are working fine as well, as are my totals. So again, you can run a test form if you want to check and make sure that everything you're putting in place is as you want.
Okay, got another question here. I've got another question, David, from Andre.
Okay.
Thank you, Andre. He's asking about integration. You know, what system capability in terms of integration?
Yeah, sure. So we have a no-code rule that allows you to call Azure Logic Apps. So if the system you're integrating into is in the cloud and has a connector in Azure Logic Apps, we can integrate in there very easily. It's 100% no code. And then we also have as well a no-code rule as well for talking to external web APIs, which is a new functionality. And again, we're very excited about it.
Okay. So that's going to cater for most, if not all, systems, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
So on my total question here, I'm going to add firstly a data validation rule under data integration. So I want to stop the user from submitting this step if the total calculated here is less than 500. So I'm going in here, drilling down again. Total is less than, in this instance, 500. That condition is met. Must be 500 or more.
Okay. Yep.
What I also want to do here is level 1, level 2 approvals. I only want to have a level 2 approval if it's greater than 2,500. So again, I'm going to add on my trigger question here, a hide show step rule. Edit conditions. And again, drilling down. If total is less than 2,500, if that condition is met, I'm going to hide the level 2 approval step. And what that means is that that step will not be engaged with. So I'm moving down now into my level 1 approval step. I've got reason for rejection and amendment comments here. I'm going to hide both of these. There's 3 different paths you're going to take here. The first one is add rules. I'm on my trigger question. If approve equals approve, I want to hide these questions. Okay. And then you also have to factor in the user can cycle back and change their mind. So I have to hide them. So I'm going to go in hide show question. Edit conditions. Drilling down to my second step this time, if approve equals approve. Again, A-P-P-R-O-V-E, you do need to be able to spell. Approve equals approve. I want to hide reason for rejection, and I want to hide amendment comments. Next thing I want to do is another hide show question rule. And that one is going to be if it's equal to reject. So, or sorry, if it's going to be request amendment. So edit conditions. And again, drilling down, very easy to use, very intuitive. If approve equals request amendment. In that case, I want to, again, drilling down, hide reason for rejection, but I want to show amendment comments. Okay. And the last one is actually a hide show step rule. And that's going to be for reject. Edit conditions. Drilling down again, if approve equals to reject, that condition is met. I want to hide all subsequent steps. So level 2 is gone, PO raise is gone, goods received is gone. They're all gone. And again, if you want to test that very quickly, I'm just jumping in here to test it. Okay, you'll see all our steps are in place. If I reject, they're gone.
Moment of truth, David.
Request amendment. And with reject, you could also have reason for rejection here as well. So we might actually include that in it. So let me go back in here and just edit that quickly. So approve equals reject. Let's have to add one more hide show question rule here to factor in that outcome. And then we'll have our reason for rejection in place as well. So if approve equals.
What you're doing here is what you can do is do continuous improvement on an iterative basis. So, for example, if our customers can release a process into the business and you get some feedback from a department, you can just go back in and amend it and add something in, can't you?
Absolutely. So what I'm going to do next is, you see this here, level 1 approval. If approval equals request amendment, I want to send it back to the first step. So when it gets back to the first step, I want to be able to make it visible and embed the comments from here back to here. So I'm going to hide them and make them read only on the initial step. And then my trigger point to determine whether or not we send it back is here at step level this time. I'm not a question change level like here. And again, the beauty of these question change rules is I can always see contextually where everything is and why it sits where it sits. If I select reason for rejection, there is no rules here. If I select approve, I can see my rules. I can see where my rules sit. I can see the sequence. I can edit them from here. So at step level this time, I'm going to go in and add rules. And this time I'm going to go for a passback rule.
Okay.
And I know my condition in this instance is if approve equals request amendment, I want to send it back, only one step to send it back to. And again, at step level here, what I want to do is I want to use a hide show question rule to show the level 1 approver comments now because it's passing back. Again, subject to the same condition. So if I come in here, approve equals request amendment.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to show on my initial step our level 1 approver comments. And the very last thing I want to do here is data integration, set question value. All I'm going to do here is copy the comments back from the approval step through to the initiator step. My target question is my level 1 approver comments here, and my source is the approver comments from level 1 here. And those are my rules in situ. And again, let's just create a form and see what we've got so far.
Yeah, this will be good.
So here's our purchase order request.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we know what works here. We've already tried it out, so we know this works. And we know this works too, because we've tried it. So I'm just going to do this very quickly. So 10,000. So 10,000 here means it's level 2 approval is required here as well. If I bring back that down to say 700, it's now only level 1 approval. And if I bring that down under 500, I'm not allowed. Okay. So again, all those rules are built very, very quickly in the system. When I click submit, I go to approve here. If I request an amendment comments, when I click submit, it goes all the way back to the first step, and I can see the comments embedded here. I can make the appropriate change, push it on again, approve it this time. Again, everything's hidden, click submit, moves through the PO raise. Now what we're going to do lastly here is we're going to copy the table content from here to here and make this read only. And then we're going to have a PO raised question here as well. So I'm going to jump back out.
Got another question, Dave.
Yeah, sure.
Stephen, thank you for this one, Stephen. He's asking if what document generation capability there is.
Yeah, so document generation is integral to FlowForma. You can interface with it from Flow Designer here. So it allows you to use any Word document template, populate that with content from the process you're building from. So for example, I have one here. This is actually a concrete pre-pour document. It was a Word document that's populated using our generate document capabilities and populated with content from the form in which the document was generated. And this is pushed through to a document repository. You can embed images, previewed annotated images, wet signatures, etc. Perfect for on-site engagements. And that was built out in a Word document here when the FlowForma plugin is installed. And all you've got to do is cursor position in your document and pull through from here any attributes you want, which are those clipboard icons here, and map them in. It's as simple as that. What you can also do here as well, though, is you can apply rules as well. So if there's content that may not be relevant to a specific generation instance of a document, you can remove that content from the generated document, and the document will contract to reflect that. So again, very useful for a lot of HR processes. So what I'm going to do here is on my PO request.
Sorry, David. Stephen will contact you after this just to find out what document you're looking to generate.
Okay, so I'm just going to use the map repeating table here. So I'm mapping my RTPO here for my initial step through to my PO raise step here, mapping the table across. And I can append or overwrite. I'm going to overwrite, and I can just go through my mappings very easily like this here. So again, it's the speed at which you can build this here. This has been built from scratch. And the beauty of FlowForma is that it's an intuitive tool to build with.
Okay.
So some other things you can do here as well that I think are relevant is, let me just say this, you can use your cascading list, for example, outside of a table as well. So I could have my category and item, I could have that outside of a table structure as well, should I wish. Lists are used a lot to manage and maintain how users are engaging with content, and they're very quick and easy to build with and use. What I can also do as well here within my table is I could also, say for example, I had chosen an item. I'm going to create a new form for a moment. Say for example, I chose an item here.
Yeah.
I could have a column to the right of this called description, and I could make it read only,
Okay.
and I could pull through using a get list data rule the appropriate description here for that item. So the level of granularity you can get to with the data you need, say for example in a purchase order, is it's entirely up to you how detailed you go with it.
Okay.
I'm just going to do one more form here very quickly.
Done, looks to be working first time.
Yeah, there you go. All pull through. And I could make these read only if I wanted to, or I could have them editable. They could come up with a new total and so on. And then you would push it on then into goods received. And in this case here, I haven't done the mapping here, but in this case, these will be read only, and you'll just be able to edit this piece here. So I'll just do that mapping very quickly here.
More or less done, aren't you?
Yeah. So all I'm doing here is going to PO raised, and then I'm mapping through into my goods received. And it's just very simple to do. And I can govern that with a condition as well here. This is a step level rule. So the events are completing, starting, and saving. Completing is when the user clicks the submit button. Saving is when they click the save button. And that's it done. It really is as simple as that. And again,
well done.
The beauty of it is, because you're working from a single build interface, it's very easy to go back into a process that you've built in 6 months, a year later, and unpick it and make changes to it. Whereas a lot of the tools that are out there would have separate components you have to knit together. It'll be a form rendered component, it'll be a workflow component. You have to weave the two together. This is not a challenge with FlowForma because you're working from the same single interface. So I can go in, or somebody else can go in, a year down the line, and you can see intuitively where your rules sit and why they sit, where they sit.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of using this system.
Very good. Took about 40 minutes there, Dave. Well done.
Yeah, no problem.
That's good. So we'll just invite Connor back in at this stage. Hi, Connor.
Hi guys, well done. Great stuff, Dave.
No problem.
Yeah, well done. I mean, I think this is the third one of these we've run now, so I think that's 3 times you've completed within the hour. So it seems to be the proof is in the pudding, I think there.
Absolutely.
So we've just got one more poll left for this session. What's most important to you from digitizing your processes? I might just pull that up on the screen for you here now. there just seems to be a couple of clear winners here on this one, guys. So 67% integration with other systems, which again was a topic that I think you touched on a couple of times there throughout. So that's basically 2/3 of our audience here. See, was really crucial, and a third then for the ability to automate in-house, which of course as well is a really great advantage to have, being able to edit and alter those pieces in-house as well. So really interesting feedback, guys. What do you think?
Brilliant, really good feedback, really good questions in the session as well. Dave did a great job, so yeah, good, all good.
Great stuff. We might just get to another couple of those questions before we wrap up, and I know we're getting very close to the end of our session, so we might just get to a couple of the questions that the guys didn't get to during the build, because I know, Dave, you're working at maximum pace there to try and get things working at the end. So that's just how these things work. But one person is asking, and I guess this is back maybe earlier in the build, Dave, when you were talking about engaging external parties, such as they're talking about regulators and insurers here in this instance, but they're wondering if they can input those into their processes. Is that something that could be done?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can engage with third parties either with secure access or anonymous access. But the anonymous access ones are used a lot by, for example, sport bodies for police vetting, etc., where you have an initial step that's anonymous access that's been pushed into an internal process. The process continues on internally with the ability to notify, obviously, the external as to the status of their request. And again, for say for suppliers, etc., you can have secure access too as well. And anonymous and secure access can be used right throughout a process, not just on an initial step.
Great answer. Thanks for that, Dave. There's another question here, and this is actually something that was mentioned towards the end of your build there, Dave, about, there's somebody said here about our processes often need changes. Could I make these changes in-house? I think you touched on that towards the end, but I suppose maybe is this something that more than one person could do in the team, perhaps?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's designed from the ground up for process owners. It's 100% no code because it's a single interface. Anybody can go in and make the appropriate changes to it. It's not a steep learning curve to get up to speed and start digitizing your processes at scale.
And there's also a question here. This might actually relate back to an earlier comment actually that was made, guys. This person's looking to see how soon they could see an ROI from implementing FlowForma. Maybe Stewart, that's something you might be able to touch upon, but I think that was mentioned earlier, so it might be nice just to cover off that towards the end here.
It's a really critical decision, and actually one of the main reasons our customers choose us, because you're talking about a really, really fast ROI, because you're getting processes digitized into production. You saw how quickly our customers were doing there. In fact, I'll give you an instance of one. There was one, the HR onboarding, which was 22 hours to digitize the process and actually release it into the business. That was a very new customer of ours called AC Immune. They're based in Switzerland, and they got HR onboarding released into the business over only a 6-week period. So, and they've gone on already to digitize many other processes. So, you are looking on average around about 6 weeks to start getting an ROI. So it's really, really fast, faster than anything else on the market.
Excellent. Yeah, those customer success stories are always great touch points on these.
Really powerful stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so I do see the time is getting very close, and I know people would appreciate getting some time back, so we might wrap it up from here. If you didn't get to your questions, we'll definitely get Dave and Stewart to reach out to you with any unanswered ones that are there, but just conscious of time at the moment. So before we part today, a quick reminder that you can book a one-to-one call with any one of our process experts, or in fact you can sign up for a free 14-day trial on our website at www.flowforma.com. Much like Stewart mentioned earlier as well, they can help you out with any of those specific challenges that you're facing, and they're absolutely there to help you steer your digital transformation project in the right direction. So be sure to reach out with any questions or queries you may have with those challenges that are specific to you. So very finally then, when this webinar ends, I think I mentioned it at the beginning, there's a very, very quick survey that will pop up, and we'd really appreciate if you could take a minute to fill that out for us. So the feedback you give us is invaluable for these sort of sessions, and it impacts us, especially on the workshop here today. So we knew it was sort of quite popular with our audience. So it's really great to get that feedback from you guys. We really appreciate it. So if you could just take maybe a minute to fill that out, that would be great. Thank you very much. And that's all really, I suppose, for today. Thanks very much, David and Stewart. And once again, congratulations on knocking it out of the park again, Dave. So well done. They're 3 from 3. So, but yeah, that's all from us, I think. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you all learned, I suppose, how easy it is to digitize. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day wherever you are across the world. And we'll see you again shortly for the next episode. But thank you very much, and bye for now.
Bye.